you might have initially people go, oh, that's an overpay, right? And here's what I have to say about this. What's the other option, Kev? Phoenix Suns Deandre Ayton negotiations on max rookie extension have stalled. Adrian Wojnarowski reports. The Phoenix Suns' reluctance to offer a max rookie contract extension to Deandre Ayton has stalled discussions on a deal. A key part of the Suns' run to the 2021 finals has no intention of accepting a deal less than the comparable max contract signed by Trae Young, Luka Doncic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Michael Porter Jr. He is eligible for a 5-year, $172.5 million extension with escalators that could reach 207. So that is the Porter Jr. deal. A deal that many executives league-wide expected would be complete in short order this offseason. Of course, we only have until October 18th. That is the deadline for rookie extensions. What do you think?
How much do you think Michael Porter Jr. getting, granted it's not fully guaranteed, but a partially guaranteed max deal, how much do you think that is influencing these talks? Because Michael Porter Jr. gets it. You could say maybe he's not worth it yet. You can also say DeAndre Ayton is not worth it yet for that type of money. I wonder how much of these negotiations are about the full value of the max deal, fully guaranteed, versus some incentives and qualifiers that the Phoenix side understandably might want to have in there. Because with Ayton, I can totally see the argument for not wanting to give him the full max deal right now, but I can't see the argument for not wanting to give it to him in the same spirit that Michael Porter Jr. got it. I think that's the market. That's the way players, with his type of status and success are getting a deal. So I just wonder, where's the compromise end up falling here in terms of some of those incentives? Because they should find a deal.
And we are back to, Robert Sarver then being in the spotlight. And it says if Suns owner Robert Sarver doesn't come to an agreement with Ayton before the deadline, it will certainly raise questions again about his commitment to constructing a sustainable contender in the Western Conference. He hasn't paid the luxury tax as an owner since 09-10, a full decade before the franchise returned to the playoffs. And it says there were long questions about Sarver's decision to trade Joe Johnson instead of extending his contract, a move that many believe cost the Suns a championship in the Nash-Stoudemire era. Here's what I would say. That at the 10 years after that, right? Until you end up getting back to the playoffs. And then you went to the finals. And this kid is coming into his own. I am not the biggest Ayton fan in the world, but I was having a discussion the other day with somebody because the Michael Porter Jr. deal got done, and they were talking to me about Jaren Jackson, who was also going to be up for one. A contract extension is up for one, and they're negotiating as we speak, right? Attempting to get that done long term. And I said, even with an Ayton or with a Jaren Jackson or whoever, you might have initially people go, oh, that's an overpay, right? And here's what I have to say about this. What's the other option, Kev? What's the other option?
Trade him.
Then what? How are you replacing that level of talent if you want to maintain being good?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I'm sure that's what James Jones would be saying to Robert Sarver. What are we going to do? You don't want to give him the money? We're going to trade this defensive stalwart who has gotten better every single season of his career and has shown signs of being able to do more on offense that might make him worth this max deal. He's worth a max for what we do. I'm sure that's what James Jones is saying.
I mean, I just look at it and I say,
his front office.
What are your options? How are you, when you're in Phoenix, when you're in Memphis, when you are in these places, like, okay, fine, don't sign them. Now what? Now what? How are you getting a player that can be that good? I mean, unless you bottom out again. You're not getting that guy in free agency in these places.
The one thing I'll say about the Suns here, though, Chris, is the financial aspect is a legitimate challenge. It's not just a Robert Sarver thing with him being cheap, which, I think that's a little unfair in this situation because they also have Mikal Bridges coming up.
Yep.
He can be restricted in 2022. The following year, they have Cam Johnson coming up. They already have Devin Booker and Chris Paul getting paid $30 million. If you slap on Ayton to that, you slap on Bridges, suddenly you're in a situation where you're keeping the whole group together, which is wonderful. But the goal is to win a championship. And that really severely limits your flexibility with the types of moves that you can make. So what options do you have? It's a tough spot. It really is because you want to keep all these guys, but what is Mikal Bridges worth?
Look, you also don't know, like, do you consult Booker and Paul on this?
You gotta. But they're going to say we want to keep all these guys. Pay them all.
But they might.
Chris Paul got voted as the next coach, not GM.
I know. I'm aware. But, I mean, you would respect what they have to say, and you say there's going to come a day where Chris Paul's gone, and is Booker Ayton good enough? You know what I'm saying? Is that what we want to build our core around? And are we good to build around that with Bridges also involved when Chris Paul walks away? That's the question you have to answer, right? Because that day is coming sooner than later.